Tell me the story of how you came to Greensburg.
The story of how I came to Greensburg. Um, I was living in Akron, having left Wisconsin, where I had been living for many years. I had gotten married and gotten divorced. And I was really sort of perplexed about my life. I was about 40. And I just thought I would go back to where I was born, where my parents lived in Akron, Ohio, and kind of regroup and figure out what to do next. Which was sort of like, as my sister would say, going from the frying pan into the fire. And it was kind of a tough year in which I was thrown out of my parents' home because my dog got in a fight with my dad's dog, and my dad just sort of banished both of us. So I had lived there for about 6 months when that happened, I think, and hadn't lived in Akron for 20 some years, didn't know too many people, and I didn't know what to do. I did find a place to stay, as did my dog, but I also know I needed to. That was just a temporary place, and I was looking for work. I'm an ordained minister. I was looking for a church, and somebody suggested, rather than just staying in that area of Ohio, look to Western Pennsylvania or Western Ohio. And so I called Western Pennsylvania and asked if there were any churches looking for ministers that had a house, because I needed a place to live. And they said, yeah, there is. It was part-time, and it's just in South Greensburg. And so I drove out for an interview, all the while driving. Now, I'm desperate. I'm unemployed. I'm virtually homeless. And I'm driving on 30 saying, God, tell me you have another idea, because I didn't like 30 at all. I was used to very rural Wisconsin and no traffic lights, and there were a lot of traffic lights. And I was used to being able to see practically to the next county, and in Western Pennsylvania you can't see more than a quarter of a mile. So I was like, oh my word, what am I thinking? And I go to this little church where about 5 old women interview me. There is a house, and that was good, and I accepted because didn't seem like God had anything else in his little black bag for me. So I come here not all that willing. I'm desperate, so I come, and I started, it was 16 years ago in November, saying I'll be here 1 year. This will be the place I'll regroup, and I'll launch and get another job and move out of town. And it was a little part-time job, and I thought, well, I'll get another part-time job. And I went to the Y, where they knew I had an aquatic background, so they kind of made me a lifeguard. They put me in classes really quickly, made me a lifeguard, and I started lifeguarding too. And thinking in my mind, well, I don't want to get to know anybody because I'm leaving. I'll just be here and look for another job. And then I met Tom within a couple months, because he would come swimming while I was off and on a break, but I would see him, and then people who knew both of us knew that we had some things in common. And I talked to him once, because we both had been to India, so we talked about how we'd been to India, and I said, oh, where do they eat Indian food around here? And he said, I'll get back to you on that. And I'm like, oh no, he thinks it was like we've made this connection, and I'm probably going to go on a date, and I don't want that. And so I hid in the women's locker room the next time when I knew he would come, because I didn't think he would leave. I didn't think he would talk to me then, because I was away. And so he left me alone for the longest time, because he got the message that I can't talk to him. And then I think a couple months went by, and then we started talking again, and I said to him, I need a table loom. Do you know anybody who has a table loom? I'm going to demonstrate weaving, and I can't transport my loom. And he said, I can get you a table loom. I thought, this guy is weird. Most people wouldn't know what a table loom was. But he brought in a table loom the next time. And not only did he bring in a table loom, but it was the first time I'd seen him fully clothed. I'd only seen him in its Speedo, which of course is really sort of intimidating when you're kind of in the bottom of the barrel emotionally. And so when he's dressed, he looks like somebody you can go out with, So I'm like, okay, so we talked again about eating Indian food. And we did go out, and it was in May after I had moved here in November. And, one thing led to another. Anyway, we've been married to 12 years. But after we went out, within about 6 months, again in November, the anniversary of my year in Greensburg, I was running around India and Nepal with him for 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I said, God, that was a great decision. I'm glad you wanted me to come to Greensburg, because that was really a dream come true. And I just couldn't believe the reversal of fortune I had personally, from being kind of so miserable for so long, and then a year later, I'm running around India and Nepal with this good-looking man. Go figure. I never would have written that script for me, but here it was. So I stayed here, and I stayed at the church. We got married there. Because that was like an interim, I was only supposed to be there a time, and I was there 5 or 6 years. I finally, quit, because it wasn't at all what I thought it was going to be. They were happy to have me there. They were never looking for somebody else, so it wasn't that kind of interim, the technical definition of an interim when you're serving a church. But even in that time, I was looking to move early on, and I got interviews, but I never got a job. And so I've stayed. And initially, like I say, I didn't want to be here. I'm like, I don't want to die here, I would say. Tom, I don't want to be here. But Tom has been here basically since high school, except for college and medical school. He's lived in this area, so it's definitely home for him. And but it's tough in that I've lived a lot of places, from Ohio to California and Oregon and Minnesota and Wisconsin and even Indiana, and this is the area that has the most stable population, in that more people have never switched zip codes here than anywhere in the country. And what that means when you have moved and switched zip codes is that people here don't know what to do with a stranger, because they have their family and their life, and because they've never moved, they don't know what it's like to be a stranger and don't know how to reach out to them. And so it is tougher here than other places, although every place has its particular challenge, but it's unique. There's a uniqueness about this area. But now that I've been here so long, and the older I get, the more I'm like, I am not starting over somewhere else where people don't know my stories. And then when I die, nobody would have any stories to tell me if I moved. That's sort of one of my it's in the back of my mind that, what's valuable is sort of what they say about you when you die, what they would, do for you, and I don't know, bring to the funeral or something. And the older you are, the harder it is for them to know what that was like. If they didn't know your mother, if you didn't have any idea what you were like in your 20s or 30s, and you just were meeting them when you're like retired or something. It's like, wow, I don't want that. So I want them to say, oh, I remember when Bobbie did this, And even though they didn't really know me till I was in my 40s, they probably have a good idea, some idea of what it was like in my 20s and 30s. So I feel like I'm gonna die here, and it's okay, because I wouldn't really want to die anywhere else, which has been that's quite a journey to take, to go from I don't want to die here to okay, I'll die here.
Right.
So,
I'm curious where this person who came to Greensburg and said, I'm going to only be here for 1 year, where did that person imagine themselves going after that year?
I hadn't lived in New England, and so I was aiming for New Hampshire or Vermont.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to live in a really beautiful area and look out at my kitchen window and see something really beautiful. And I'd live, that would make it sort of a coast-to-coast existence, and that had some appeal to me. And like I say, I had interviews, but they never hired me. So, but I also think that's a tough area to move to because, if you haven't lived there for a couple generations, then you're definitely not one of us. So, in New England, so.
Similar to what you were saying about Greensburg, but
it's
also from a generational.
Yeah, for there it's much a historical. They're very, very proud of their history, and where here it's. Well, one of my friends that I met here early on said she describes it as she thinks it's a coal mine discharge that's like gravity, that you can't really measure it or see it or smell it or taste it, but it keeps people from moving. And so that's why we have this very stable population or it's like the Hotel California. Once you get here, you can never leave. And I think there's something to that just because of the stable population. But the other thing that to me is kind of special about the area is that if you go to like St. Clair Park and there's this band, either it's a rock and roll band, but it's a band that is screaming for you to dance to. And nobody dances. Everywhere else they dance, but so they not only move, like in terms of moving from a house to house, they don't actually move their bodies either when the music is just, really. So I see that. I've been at St. Clair Park when I'm one of the only few people dancing, because I'm not from here, so I have different rules, I guess. I don't know, but that's what it feels like.
Well, you've begun to answer one of my other questions. Is there anything that outrages you?
Outrages me? Oh, really? The no dancing? Yeah. I suppose it's true in other areas, but I've certainly lived other places where people are just more free to do, I think, to think differently, certainly to dance and to sing and to do things that I do value. Where here it's a little tougher.
I see. And do you think that has negative consequences for the community around Greensburg?
Oh, yeah, I haven't. Oh, it's an interesting question. I haven't thought. There's just a part of me that says, well, that's just sort of the way it is. And I suppose I probably do push back on it because there are, and invite them to, sort of a more full expression of what life could be, like I'd lead a sing-along, just because I think people just singing silly songs has high value. And although there are people who like to do that, it's a small group that does that. But I would I've wanted to do it with dancing, and I've tried dancing with my little Pennsylvania Sings. Again, it's not all that well received. It's not what people really want to do here.
Would you say it's about inhibitions?
I don't know, other than it's just not what they've done. So it would be kind of out of their comfort zone. So, and that's not where people go. They don't want to. They don't want to explore what's outside their comfort zone. Here, that's probably true generally, but here it seems they have a unique version of that here.
Right.
So.
Okay. So at your funeral, many years.
Yes, right.
From now,
decades from now.
And people are saying, "Oh, I remember when she did this and that." What are they going to be talking about?
Well, I hope they talk about that I really liked having fun, and I invited others to have fun, because I think there's a real resistance to just enjoying, life and what we have, whether it's singing or dancing or or taking a walk, or taking a day to kayak down the Yak, or that they know that that's what that is all my high value system, and that the people who have done that with me, who sung, who danced or whatever, they would think of all that fondly. I suppose that is one of what I would probably almost most want them to talk about.
All right. Okay. So I want to also talk about your community involvement. You mentioned that you volunteer in the community in a variety of ways. Discuss.
So some of the ways, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was to me the interesting question for me. It's like, I made my list. It's like, oh, but I didn't say that, and I didn't say that. That it really was kind of longer than I even realized how, because most of it is under the radar. I mean, it's, again, if you go back to the obituary, some of those things wouldn't be named, but a lot of those things would not be named. It's just too kind of obscure or something. You would say that I'm a master gardener, which means that I'm a volunteer for Penn State Extension. I mean, yes, I garden, but there's so much I don't know. I couldn't begin to know. Don't want to know. But I raise vegetables, and now I'm a little bit more into the flower part of it now. But I try to provide as many vegetables for the family as I can from the backyard. And I'm a volunteer for the hospice, and I volunteer in different ways. One, I go to visits to hospice patients' homes or wherever they live, and visit them and their family. I do a hospice nurse support group monthly, and there's also a singing group. We sing to hospice patients. So so that's been like a 10-year thing. And I mean, there are other ways you volunteer for hospice. What else did I list? One of the things that's sort of hardly on the radar screen is I have this little contemplative group of women that I call the Flower Garden, because it's kind of a reference to remember the lilies of the field. It's that first and foremost we're God's creation, and God adores us. And we don't live like we believe that, or even know it, or have ever heard of that. And so part of it is just to practice being adored by God. And we do need to practice that. And so we sort of practice it in whatever kind of way. But one of the best ways I think we do is, at the beginning of the group, I ask what flower you are today. And so everybody is a flower for that moment. So for that moment, we really are God's flower. And I kind of like that. And it's a group. We meet at the Presbyterian Church, but there's Catholics, and there's a Methodist, and there's Presbyterians, and then there's whatever I am there. What else is on that list? I lead my sing-along that I lead.
Can we stay with that one for just a
second? Okay,
second?
sure.
You mentioned living as though we're adored by God. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more, perhaps?
That we're, first we're created, and our birth is nothing that we had anything to do with, and that's the gift right there, that we were born, that we're alive, and that hopefully we've been cared for by our parents and by other people in our life, so that we know love, that we know people in relationships, so that we can also love back and mature and grow, and feel hurt and grief, and also know that that's like not the last word, and that's what's really true about life. More so than the gas price is high, or there's a great deal of conflict in the world, and I don't know how to make ends meet and stuff. But if you actually started with that you actually have something to be grateful for today. It's a different perspective on the world, and you can actually see God's activity in the world from that point of view. So I think our world really sort of works against having you think that way. I mean, there's not a lot of voices suggesting that first and foremost we're loved by God, and so you get to practice that. So that's sort of, that would be the foundation for probably everything that I do.
Right. Well, you've anticipated another one of my questions. I was going to ask you about what you thought the connection between spirituality and philanthropy was, since it obviously it plays a big part.
Right, it comes from having been given so much. When I came to Greensburg, I know that there was a book out at the time. I can't think of the name of it, but every day it was a little reading. And one of the things she suggested that every day you list 3 things you're thankful for. And when you're really depressed and you're just dragging yourself around through life, that can be hard. But she believed, and now I believe, that if you did it, said 3 things every day for a month, you would have a different perspective on your life. It really is life-changing. And so so now it's pretty easy for me to list all kinds of things in the day, but because I feel I have been given so much, it's just kind of crucial, like breathing. You breathe in, you breathe out. You've been given, you give back, and so you do offer and invite and encourage and be hospitable, and so that's. So my sort of philanthropy, although we do give money away, but it's I like to think of it more in relationship with the giving that I do, because I show up at places to be with people, because like in hospice or something like that, or make the world a prettier or more productive place by growing vegetables and helping other people grow vegetables and flowers and stuff.
Is this what you were alluding to when you said a lot of what you do is under the radar?
Yeah, because I'm not. I would say a lot of what I do is under the radar, because it's not. I mean, I think part of it is because I don't have a job where I show up. All of this is volunteer. I'm in my home. I'm in my garden. It doesn't get a lot of press coverage or something. Although I have actually had press coverage over some of the goofy things, but a lot of people might think that I'm even wasting my life because I am not working in a job and that, and it's not. They think I'm not very ambitious. And sometimes I do think I'm lazy, that I could be doing more, which is also a big message you get in the world, that you should be doing more. And that's probably one of my inner, because there are times I really would like to, in the wintertime I want to do more because I don't have the garden to putz in, and so I'm aware of having more time than I want for, to do something that it may not be the best choice for me. So that is one of my issues. But I do want, like having the Marcellus Shale group, even in my home, I'll be the place for that as it's part of the giving. Yeah.
Okay, I think, I think we talked more or less about everything that I wanted to talk about. My final question, is there anything you would like to sort of leave the people who are going to be listening to this interview with?
Oh, okay. That if they want to dance, let's get together. Yeah, I suppose it would be, the other thing that just reminds me of is is, for me, the value of taking a Sabbath and resting, taking one day a week, and just enjoying what has been given to you and recognizing it. So that's where, the singing and dancing and just being with people who you care about, who care about you, to live out that value, because people don't seem to have the time to do that. And of course, you could also say they're not doing it because they don't have the value. But I would just really love that whole conversation to take place, and where people actually practice what they really believe in a way that maybe they don't feel like they're doing right now. But yeah, I guess that. Yeah, I just would love to have that be a cultural conversation. How can we make that more possible for people to feel like they can take a day off a week and just enjoy what we've been given, because we've been given so much.